forget later. Okay. Yay. Let's just start. What the hell? All right, everybody, welcome. We're trying this thing. It's a new thing. It's a live interview with Elaine Cartas. And my name is Mazarine Trays. I'm so happy to be here with everybody. And for those of you who don't know, we are having a fundraising career conference happening April 2nd, 4th, and 6th this year. And I'm so excited that Elaine is going to be speaking there. And we'll be talking a little bit about what she's going to be speaking about. And it's so exciting because this year we're going to be talking about this is how we rise. And now is our time to rise with leadership in this country. So, and other countries. So let's get started with that. So Elaine, thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you. Thanks for bringing me here.
Tell everybody about what you are about.
Great. So hi, everyone. My name is Elaine Cartas. I'm a global career and assertiveness coach. I actually just went full-time into my business, but I've been in the nonprofit sector for the past 15 years. And I also used to work in politics for 10 years. I'm here based in LA. So I help first-generation millennials or women of color, as well as other women, just to be more assertive at their work, dealing with difficult conversations, maybe about how to, what's their future in the organization, to do salary raises, to do career changes, or even start their own businesses. But regardless of what change we want to create, what I realized with myself and even with other clients, it's being honest with yourself. So being self-aware when you're unhappy and how to bring that conversation up. So I've been helping with clients one-on-one throughout the world. I have clients in Nigeria and Australia, but a lot of people here in the States as well. So thank you, Mazarine, for inviting me to do this call.
Oh man, that's exciting. I didn't even have these international clients. That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's a global thing. How do we speak up as women? And there's nothing negative about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting time. It's a positive time, I will say. It's not negative, and how to balance that because of the cultural differences as well. But
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So today we're going to be, talking a little bit about assertiveness, which will be your topic at the career conference. Why is assertiveness so important? I mean, at work, like, what does it mean to you even?
Well, to me, it's just speaking your value and your truth, right? I mean, I'll share my story. I grew up in an immigrant family. I'm first generation. And I grew up in a family where you respect the father figure in your family and do whatever he says. And when that translated into work for me, it was, okay, I'll do whatever my boss says, whether he's a male or even a female. But I realized, wait, it's not just doing whatever he or she says, it's how do I provide value? And I remember I was working at a job. It was 12-hour days, 7 days a week, as you all know, in the nonprofit sector. And I asked myself, I should be getting paid more. I am bringing so much money into this organization, but then there was wait, I'm being too greedy. I shouldn't ask for more money. And I asked my family, hey, how do I ask for a raise? Because my family is really important to me and I go to them for advice. And I'm like, well, why are you going to ask for more? Don't be so greedy. You make more than me. I'm like, no, I want to ask for more because I know my value. I learned how to do it. And I asked for my first $12,000 raise and I got it. And it had nothing to do with me being greedy, but it's just, I knew my value. And you have to understand when you're letting your employer know your value and not just asking for money, but it's also putting a memo. I call it a brag sheet of all the things you've accomplished while you've been there, what value you provide, and even doing research on other organizations that have similar titles. You're letting your employer know, you know what, I do know my value, and that changes everything. Because then it reminds the employer, oh yeah, like, wow, this person does know her value here. Mm-hmm. And I do want to do whatever it takes to keep her or him here, because not just the skill sets that you have, but also the knowledge that you bring into the organization and your relationships with donors.
Oh, yeah. So what I'm hearing is that assertiveness is important because you can, in fact, get more money, but also learn what your true value and worth is in the organization.
Yes. And just in the employer perspective, so take out your ego and just think about the organization you're working with. Mm-hmm. It's you need to remind your employer what value you bring. I mean, we don't live in the Industrial Revolution anymore where we're factory workers, like, you know, the I Love Lucy show, and we're just putting the chocolates in, or I know she fails too. But you have to, but you have to remind your employer, like, you know, we're bringing value. And I know it doesn't come across in this interview, but I used to think that I was providing value in an organization where I just took notes the whole time, but I didn't speak up. And that's not really providing value. Then you're just sitting there, just taking notes. And so how do you start bringing value up, and how do you start speaking up in meetings? And it's not saying you go against people, it's just providing your insights as well.
So that leads me to my first real question, which is, you know, what are some of the unique challenges that first generation women face in the workplace, specifically in the nonprofit workplace?
So it's the perspective change, right? It's the cultural change. I mean, for me, I could say that I grew up thinking that when you confront someone, or if it's a conflict, it's a negative thing, but it's changing that and understanding that conflict actually provides opportunities. And it's how to word it and gain that trust. Sorry, go ask your question again. I want to make sure.
Yeah. So what are unique challenges that first generation women face in the workplace?
It's speaking up about their value, whether it's asking for a raise or just how can I get more responsibilities or just learn and understand this thing. And it's really asking questions at the end of the day when it comes to being assertive. So a word-to-word script that I've learned and that I teach my clients is, you know, when you're new to an organization, they've been doing something for so long and you want to understand why, it's just asking the question, hey, thank you so much. So the thank you sandwich is such a great word-to-word script that I teach my clients is, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this project. I know you've been working on it for 5 years. While at the same time, can you help me understand why we're doing A, B, and C? And that's what a lot of people want to know, not just first generations, but like, explain to us why we're doing this. Like, we want the bigger picture. We want to know the impact. And also when it's providing suggestions, you could also use that same technique saying, thank you so much for letting me be part of this project for the past 3 years. While at the same time, I think we should do A, B, and C. What are your thoughts? So what's so perfect about this technique is you use thank you. You say while at the same time, use those words. You don't say but, because but's negative. And then you ask a question by involving the other person. And that's how it is to be assertive. Like, you have to understand that you're not just voicing your opinion, like, my opinion counts and we should do it this way. It's a conversation, right?
Yeah, totally. And I actually was teaching somebody yesterday about, you know, don't just go into your monologue. Ask what they think, ask what their needs are, and with that, so they have a place to go when you stop talking.
Yeah. And then come in a place where it's about you. So I'm pretty sure everyone could relate. And if you do, type yes into the box. But you know, when you're getting an email and you're emailing back and forth and it's just so passive aggressive when your coworker, okay, see, I see a yes. And your coworker's literally in the next cubicle or in a meeting. And you're just like, why don't you just come next to me to talk to me about it, right? So this is a great technique that I've learned to use. Okay, see, I see the yeses. Thank you, guys. If this is a yes for you, say yes. Because then it lets other people know, oh, I'm not the only crazy one. So when that happens, I get up. First off, I breathe, right? I say all the nasty things in my head. Like, it's okay to feel that way. And then I go to them and I come in a perspective of me instead of them. And I let them know, hey, I don't know if there's any miscommunication. I think it is easier if we talk about it in person. Is there anything else you need from this? Or what I'm hearing you say is you need this, this, and this. I just want to make sure that we could do this easily. So what I'm doing is talking about how can I communicate to them. So I'm using the I messages all the time. I'm also mindful at the clock, right? So if it's close to work hours, just know everyone's just grumpy and just to wait the next day and approach them in person. Like, whenever there is conflict, do not use email or text message at all. And if it's impossible to get to someone in person, then I suggest a phone call. And then what happens if they don't answer their phone? Because as you know, it's so easy to ignore someone. Then you could just phrase it like, hey, what time are you free to connect tomorrow. I
There
mean,
you go. That's perfect. That's actually something I wrote about last year in the Tyranny of Email book. It talks about how never put stuff you have to talk about, like a debating thing in email, because the tone's going to be taken the wrong way, the whole thing.
yeah,
So here's another question for you. We already talked a little bit about how you've been personally challenged and what you learned from it. And you asked for a raise and you were navigating through cultural differences. But you also didn't mention how you asked for a future in your career when you were more assertive.
yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure all of you, I mean, that's why you're here. So congrats to all of you for investing in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so important to know the trajectory. So, and I'll share it in the box too. I have word to word scripts that you could use to have challenging conversations with your boss, but it's saying, thank you so much for letting me be here for the past X years or X months, right? While at the same time, I want to have a conversation with you about my future in the organization. I really see myself as being whatever it is. Maybe you're like an associate director of development. You want to be director of development or an executive director, and be like, what? And then just ask the question at the end, what are your thoughts? I'm telling you, the thank you sandwich is so beautiful to use. So I'm just going to say the statement again, because you're probably all writing notes, is thank you for the past 3 years working here. While at the same time, growth is really important to me. I would love to be director of development or executive director. What are your thoughts? And like I said, you're letting that person know that you see more than, right? And there's nothing wrong with it, because you have to keep in mind, you're letting your employer know that you want growth. And that's a good thing, right? And you're asking the question of involvement. Now, what happens if you're in an organization where they don't do growth, right? They want, and unfortunately this happens, they see you here, like they want you here forever and ever. And some of you might feel anxiety right now in your chest. By the way, I suffer from anxiety as well. And if that happens, then ask yourself, like, do you really want to work for an organization that doesn't help with your growth? And whenever I have conversations of confrontation with people, you have to ask yourself, like, what is the worst case scenario for you? So if the worst case scenario, if I asked for a raise, or if I asked for the future organization, you're going to say no. Wait, but I have a job still. So that's the worst case scenario. I mean, the worst case scenario is that I still get a paying job, but I know my employer doesn't want to work with me. So then I could start looking, but still get paid here. So really, that's not a horrible situation to be at. It's okay. I know that I need to start looking.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really helping you get clarity when you get more assertive at work. You're like, oh, okay. So this is true. Right. Absolutely. Totally. I love that. I love that. So next question, when you look at our profession, what do you see? We've both worked in fundraising. Probably a lot of people here have worked in fundraising. And we've worked, try to go up the ladder. And for me, as you say, the places I've worked haven't necessarily been interested in my growth. There's been no position for me to step into. A lot of small nonprofits are like that. So when you look at our profession, I give you my perspective. What do you see?
I mean, there's, as we all know, the turnover is so high. What's the stat? You know this better than I do.
Oh, yeah, like 12 months, 12 to 18 months. In Canada, it's 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
So
yeah. There's high turnover, and we're just working long hours. And that's why it's just so important to have this conversation, to continue to have this conversation with your employer, like, hey, growth is really important to me. Like, can you help explain that? And also keep in mind that is a question to ask in the interview. I mean, they're not just interviewing you, you're interviewing them to see if it's a good fit. And at the end of the day, it's not just the roles, it's the values that they have in place. I mean, I had a great boss. Like, she was an amazing mentor, and I continued to always talk about my growth. I just happened to realize I want to have this other venture and help other women talk about, what they want to do in their career. And have these difficult conversations.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy you're doing this now. There are some questions you can ask in the interview that will help you sort of break out the workplace culture. And some of them that I really like are, one is, how willing are people to help each other here?
Yep.
Because that will give you an idea
Yep.
of how collaborative is this environment and how will it support me. And another
Mhm.
one, which I think is relevant to this conversation, is who will I learn from and how?
Yep.
You use this for any job, not just nonprofit
And
jobs.
actually, it's not a problem to ask the question, can you tell me what your turnover rate is?
Ooh,
I've
really? You can
asked that.
ask that?
I've asked that. Yeah.
Well, sometimes I ask how many times this position been filled in the last 5 years or
Oh,
whatever.
that's a good question too.
Yeah. And then they can
Um,
say, oh, blah, blah, blah.
well, and before you ask that question, whether it's a turnover rate or how many employees, you could
Mhm.
you let them know, hey, because I let people know like I'm looking for something long term.
Mhm.
And it's really important for me to be working with a team that's also long term. So can you talk to me about turnover? So you're letting them know, hey, this is not like a 12 to 14-month gig. Like I'm
Mhm.
seeing this long term.
Mhm. Well, they do ask, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And it's always just like winning lottery, going to Spain. I don't know. Like,
Wait, Alexandra asked what was Elaine's question. I'm looking at
oh,
the box.
yeah.
What
Your
was the question?
question, which question? Well, you ask the questions like, I think you said, what's, what did you say?
Oh, okay. My question. Okay. So we were talking to ask in an interview.
Right.
There's a lot of questions you could ask.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I could answer this question. So the first question that I like asking is, how do you define success?
Mm-hmm.
You know that question you ask in the interviews, like, oh, what questions do you have for us? So the first question that I like always starting off with that I teach my clients is,
Mm-hmm.
how do you define success in this job?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not asking about roles and responsibilities, but how you define success. And then second, in terms of the turnover, you already state the statement of, it's really important for me to be in a team um, that has been here for a while because I'm looking for a long-term commitment. Side note, it sounds like marriage, I know, but I'm looking for a long-term commitment. So like Mazarine said, how many people have been in this position in the past 5 years? Or what's the average years of people that have been here? So
Mm-hmm.
you're taking control, letting them know, I see this as long-term and I want to know based on historical data of how long people have been here.
Exactly. Yeah. That is beautiful. I mean, to really announce your intent and announce your values right in the interview can be extremely powerful, especially when we know that the workplace culture is generally in the toilet at a lot of our nonprofits. And that's why people leave. So if you say, look, I'm here to be a force for good and change, and I want to stay, then people will be like, oh, okay, great. Like, well, this is what's going on. Hopefully they'll be honest with you in the interview. I mean, you you
Well, and
you want to think that.
I'll be upfront. I was working with a client who she had a certain amount that she wanted
Mm-hmm.
when she was given the job, right? She was given a
Mm-hmm.
job offer, but they were giving her, the job offer was 10K less than other similar jobs. And she said, no, I want this. They retracted the job offer and they just told her, I don't, you deserve better and we can't give this to you. And she was so upset. So I'm not saying that that happened horribly, but she stood her ground. She knew her values and the organization knew that she was too good for them. Um, and that can happen. And that's not an issue. You just
Mm-hmm.
have to know what your value is and do let other people know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Because because here they might have said no, but imagine if you're in a job, you know that you're not getting paid what you deserve, you're going to be upset about it, maybe given 6 months or a year later,
mhm.
right?
Oh, oh yeah, that happened to me. Yeah, I was working at a animal shelter, and they offered me $10 an hour, and I was like, okay. And then the woman's like, "Is there a problem?" And I was like, "No, I really needed the job at the time." But I mean, yeah, 3 months in, I was like, "This is terrible." I had been making like $18 an hour before in the East Coast, and I was just like, "No, this
Mm-hmm.
isn't going to happen. This is not what I
Mm-hmm.
want." And so, yeah, I was completely demotivated and I left.
Yep.
So,
So it's
yep,
better to happen then
yeah,
than now.
yeah. Better just to have it in the interview, because I was miserable for 3 months. So yeah, if you're getting paid less than you deserve, you need to do that right in the interview. You'd be like, no, this is how much I'm worth, and I know this. I've researched this. It's helpful if you have another offer in the offing saying, look, they're offering me this. Can you match that or increase it? But it's not necessarily always possible. So you still have to be like, look, I've done my research, salary.com, whatever. This is what's going on. So yeah, we actually met in the salary negotiation presentation that I did at AFP. People should know.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we did. That's where we
that.
met.
Yeah. But anyway, back to some questions for you, Elaine. So, when leaders try to retain first generation women, what do you see them do, and what do you think works, and what do you think doesn't work?
Retain, it's having conversations about the future, their career. And I'm not just talking about the career in the organization, but long term, and really serve as a mentor or as a coach to them. I mean, the job I was at, by the way, just so everybody knows, I've had 24 different jobs in my life. And before having my business, which I've had since this past July, I've been at my job for 3 years, which is a very long time, like might as well put a ring in it. But what's kept me there is because I had an amazing boss who's my mentor. And we just continued always having a conversation about my future. In addition to that, I also learned to manage up. I also gave her feedback as well. And because we're all ladies here that I noticed, I don't mind saying this, but this is how close we were. I remember being in a meeting with her, and she had a face, and I took her aside at the end of the meeting. I was like, I just want to let you know you had a resting bitch face. But that was just the type of relationship we had, and we could be direct with one another. And she would give me direct feedback as well, and opening up to that. And mind you, as all professionals here, as we're moving up in our career, when people continue giving us feedback, that is a compliment, because they know that we can change. It's the moment when people stop giving us a feedback that we should be worried.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
They're just like, oh, she is never going to change. She's going to keep her way. But if you're open to feedback, that's great. So whenever I get feedback from people, especially with clients, thank you so much. That helps me so I could better serve you. Right?
Totally. No, I would much rather have honesty than people be too afraid to talk to me. I would so appreciate that. So yeah, and I think it's true for a relationship as well, not just for workplace, but you have relationships in your workplace.
Absolutely. So, I mean, how we communicate in the workplace or even our personal, it like just it's transcendent. It goes both ways.
Exactly. It totally does. So what I'm hearing you say is that when people want to retain people, they should try to be open to feedback, but also show them that they're valued, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How did your boss show you that you were valued?
Well, we just had wonderful conversations. He was just always open to me having difficult conversations. I mean, I already left my company, but right before this, I had breakfast with her. Oh. And we were having a conversation of all the clients that come to me. And I was like, yeah, I'll share this freebie to all of you, is people want to know how to have these challenging conversations with their boss. And it comes off, the first thing is realizing that conflicts are opportunities. It's really opportunities for the relationship that you have. It's opportunities within the organization. And she was very well received. Mind you, I also knew how to communicate that with her. It wasn't like I went to her office and I was like, I demand your job or I demand this. It was just a back and forth communication. I mean, I did a very risky conversation back in September when I still had my job, and I don't know, I'm all about being honest with myself, and I don't know if any of you could do this, but I told him, like, I need to be honest. I need to tell you, I don't see a future in this organization. And she said, what, are you leaving? I'm like, no, it's just, I'm really in love with my business. Like, I love helping other people. And she was just such a great mentor. And she just told me, we'll see how the universe, God, Beyonce, whatever higher power you believe in, unfolds for you. And it just happened really well, and she was just very supportive. And also giving grace too. Like, we all have shitty days, maybe a family member's in the hospital.
Right. Exactly. No, I love that. So last question here. What will you be covering in your session at the Fundraising Career Conference?
Yes. So I will be covering, by the way, I just did an assertiveness workshop with Boss Babe Inc., which
Nice.
is wonderful. So it's a bunch of wonderful women who are just kicking ass in their careers and their businesses. So it's
Mhm.
similar to that. I'm doing 8 word-to-word scripts on how to have challenging conversations with your boss, and also the exact word-to-word script I used to ask for a 12K raise. Um, in addition to the word-to-word script is the resources I use. So a template of how to do the brag sheet, what resources I use, and that took me 20 minutes to ask for that raise. So I'll be covering that as well.
Mhm.
Um, and I'll type it in as well, that I want to give everyone that's in this session 5 word-to-word scripts I've used, and I teach my high-end paying clients on how to have difficult conversations. Um,
Nice.
but it's not just the word-to-word script. Like I want to emphasize how important it is that it is the perspective.
Mhm.
I was reading that we have 60,000 thoughts in like daily, right? And about
Mhm.
86% are negative and 60% are the
Mm.
same.
Mhm.
Um, and my old boss taught me this is write down the negative thoughts that you're using and changing it. So if you learn to be assertive within, um, and learn how to communicate positively or just our values to other people, it will just make it a lot easier.
Mhm. Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, thank you so much. I love your reframing of the conflicts and opportunity. And I think when we
Mm-hmm.
think about assertiveness, it's really important because people can be very afraid of conflict. And I know myself, I'm conflict avoidant, but a lot of humans are. And so it's really wonderful to kind of get these scripts. So at least you'll know, okay, if I have to have a conflict,
Mm-hmm.
this is how it has to. This is how it can go down, and be to my benefit. And Elaine, would you like to open it up for questions for people who are listening live? Do you want?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
cool.
would love for you ladies to ask questions. Maybe it's a situation that you're in. And since it's all, I think it's all ladies in here.
Yeah,
It looks like it. We'll
yeah.
keep it like Vegas. So any questions you have, we'll keep it here in Vegas.
Yeah, I can turn off the recording too. Or actually, I could just pause it. I'll pause it.
Yeah. And while you girls think 25K is too much, then you've lost it. You've
hmm
lost your power.
hmm So can you repeat that one more time? Because I'm going to start recording this. Um, what is the most important thing about being assertive again? Is it
The most important thing about being assertive is owning your power.
and
And
being silent?
yes. Yes.
Wow. So
You
being
own your
silent after you
power.
ask for something.
Mm-hmm.
That's so
Yeah, it's asking.
good.
It's a
Yes.
conversation. I mean, how many of you are in a relationship or married? Right? I'm in a relationship,
hmm
and it's asking questions. Um,
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna joke around right now since we all go to Target. I
Uh-huh.
know, and I've created this new Targument thing with my boyfriend, and we were getting ice cream, and he said, let's get mint chip ice cream. Like, but why? And he was like, what? You don't like mint chip? And I was like, yes. How do you feel about that? How do you feel? Like, I was just asking questions. Um, but it's all about asking questions. I just did a Facebook Live. I'm very in social media, and I could share all those social media handles with you. But I talked about how, when there's certain trigger points that you have, or your friends have, or your partner has, and you have no idea why. Like, wait, why are you mad? What are you mad about? Rather than saying that, a good phrase that I like teaching my clients is, I understand you're upset. Can you help me understand why you're upset? So you're letting the other person know that, hey, I know you're upset, but I don't know why. Like, can you explain to me? And it's a great compliment because you really care about that person and you want to understand why, right? I mean, I could
Totally.
go on and on with these word-to-word scripts. I love this
Totally.
stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so good. Honestly, I had a friend who she's a really wise person. And I was telling her, gosh, I'm dating this person. I just don't know how they feel about me, but I'm really scared. They probably, don't like me or whatever. And sometimes we can feel it about our donors as well, or feel it about a person at
Mhm.
work, a staff member, a board member, a volunteer. And she's like, you have to ask them. You have to ask them. You cannot assume anything, Mazarine. You need to ask them straight out, what's up? and I'm like, but can I just agonize over this a little more and just pretend like I know what they're thinking? And she's like, no, you will not know. You will never know what's in another person's mind until you ask. And I was like, you're right. I better just stop agonizing over this. And that same can be true for salary negotiation, and the same can be true for any workplace conflict that we have that we need to be assertive about. Like, you don't know how they're feeling. You think that they're mad. You think that they're this or that. But until they say, I don't like what you just did. You're like, oh, okay, great. You don't like, not like me, but you don't like my behavior, But we're not trained to have those conversations either, which is why I'm so glad Elaine is going to be speaking about this at the Fundraising Career Conference, because then maybe our workplaces won't suck. and you'll get what you want.
Yeah. And by the way, you have to keep in mind that, it's like, okay, we want to get what we want, a salary raise. And you might not get it at that job, right? And so when you decide to have that difficult conversation and you're holding yourself back, you have to ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen? Really, what's the worst that could happen when you have these conversations? And when salary negotiations, like, oh, they say no, then I could look elsewhere. Or it comes to a donor, right? The question of how do you have an assertive conversation to ask for money? They say no, but keep in mind they said no to the number. They did not say no to a donation. They said no to a number. So how could you continue being assertive? So let's say they say no to the $25,000 endowed scholarship. Like, okay, well, then it's a conversation. Well, what do you have in mind? Did you have any thoughts, right? For anyone that's in a relationship, you know exactly what I mean. Like, so what do you mean you don't like mint chip ice cream? So does that mean we do chocolate chip ice cream since I don't like mint? I know that's a horrible.
This speaks directly to my interest because I'm going to an ice cream shop later today. And that person that I'm with likes mint chip ice cream. So I'm just like, I don't like it.
Yeah, but just remember why it's so important for you to ask. I can't emphasize that enough.
100%, 100%.
And when you start owning your power, people will notice it. There will be a shift. No, really. I mean, when I asked for a salary raise, people started respecting me more. Even though I didn't get the salary raise right away, they just started like, oh, she knows what value she's bringing to this organization. It's awesome.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait for your session at this conference. So if anybody here has not yet signed up for the Fundraising Career Conference, it's right now in February, $36. So do it. Yeah, you're going to love it. You're going to love hanging out with Elaine and I as we're talking about all this stuff together. And it'll be more of a presentation, less of an interview, but I'll also be there. And we have like 10 other sessions also about helping you at work with all this other stuff. So you should check that out. And thank you so much, Elaine. It's been a wonderful interview. And everybody here, how can people get in touch with you, Elaine, if they want to learn more?
So I think the best thing to do, because I want to make sure you're going to get the freebie with the word-to-word script, is click on that link. I'll retype it. Oh, what is going on? I can't even type on this. Let me type it up right now before I forget.
Yeah, bit.ly/5 word-to-word scripts is what it is.
Yeah, so once you type into that and then subscribe to the email so that you get the guide of the 5 word-to-word scripts, just reply to the email and then I'll answer all of your questions. But I really enjoyed it. Thank you for sticking with us for 41 minutes. Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope this was very helpful, but feel free to get that guide and reply back and I'll answer any questions you have.
I got help. Thanks a lot, Elaine. I got some things to think about now. So thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.